everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking all about CTAs. CTA stands for Call to Arms, and it is a wave-based mission where each wave gets progressively harder and brings tougher enemies to face. Complete all 10 waves to save the town and get max payout. There are 5 normal maps that you can play year-round, which include Blackwater, Strawberry, Valentine, Fort Mercer, and McFarland's Ranch, but currently we have the All Hallows CTAs, which consists of the 4 maps from last year, Shady Belle, Armadillo, Butcher's Creek, and Bulger Glade, plus 3 new maps, Limpany, Heartland Oilfield, and the Saint Denis Graveyard. Hopefully we'll also get Christmas maps again in December, and hopefully we'll get new additions to those as well. You can access CTAs several different ways. The easiest being hit left on the D-pad, go down to telegrams, and then you can go to either Call to Arms when we have our normal maps or All Hallows Call to Arms right now. And then you can also access them from your lockbox or your satchel under Documents. The first part of the video, we're going to be talking about some tips if you find yourself struggling during CTAs. In the last half of the video, we're going to talk about some things you can do if you're a CTA pro. Let's get into it. So here we go. Tip number 1. Use your strengths and play style to your advantage. We all know that there's no one-size-fits-all for this game, despite what some people might try to tell you. And everyone's going to have their own preferences when it comes to just about every aspect of this game, whether it's guns, ability cards, horses, even clothes. And there's really no right answer as to which is best. Now, for CTAs, there are certain cards and guns that can set you up better than other ones, and so we'll kind of go through those a little bit today. But some things that you want to consider are do you free aim? Do you auto aim? Do you use a lot of Deadeye or none at all? Do you like to move around a lot, or do you like to hunker down? And kind of all of that will factor in to what you choose to equip. If you're struggling with CTAs, I would recommend sticking with one of 2 Deadeye cards, and that's going to either be Slow and Steady or Paint It Black. There are other cards that can make viable builds as well, but I would save those once you have some experience and you're feeling more confident with them. If you find yourself dying very quickly, or you like to hunker down, or you like to be able to eat a lot of bullets, then I would try a Slow and Steady build. Partner with this with cards like Fool Me Once, Iron Lung, Hunker Down, and that way you're going to be able to eat a lot of bullets and you won't find yourself dying so quickly. You could also pair it with a Deadeye card so that your Deadeye drains a little bit slower, because Slow and Steady, you have to be in Slow and Steady the entire time in order to get that benefit. Now, for me personally, Slow and Steady doesn't work. I like to be very mobile during CTAs, or even just when I'm playing the game. I like to run around, I like to move a lot, and part of that is just because it helps to keep my brain engaged and helps me to stay focused the whole time. But it's also somewhat strategic in that it's very easy in a CTA to get overwhelmed by too many enemies, and by being able to run and stay mobile, you can easily kind of get out of that area and get to an area that has less enemies. Sort of the same idea in self-defense. If you have 2 people that are trying to attack you, you don't want to be between them. You want to try to line them up and get them in a row so that you're only fighting one at a time. And it's kind of the same way in CTAs. You don't want to ever be in the middle where you're starting to get surrounded by enemies. You want to be able to kind of cut through and get around behind them. And so Paint It Black allows me to do that in that I can run and still activate it. I get perfect accuracy, and I have the ability to paint target. So if I have a target that's much further away, or like a war wagon, for example, where you're trying to aim and just get the person on the gunner, you have the ability to paint it so that that bullet is going directly to them. Okay, so I've posted here my current setup for, generally speaking, when I play the game, whether I'm in CTAs or not. I think it helps me be super successful in clearing out a lot of enemies. I am able to solo CTAs, so if you're struggling a little bit, depending on your playstyle, again, it may or may not work, but maybe something to give it a try. I use Paint It Black for that pinpoint accuracy and the ability to paint targets. Probably one of the best cards that you can use regardless of what Deadeye card you use is Strange Medicine. Every time you deal damage, you're going to be getting health back. And in CTAs, there's a lot of enemies, so theoretically you should be dealing a ton of damage. If you find yourself in a pinch and you throw a stick of dynamite to a group of enemies, if you kill a few of those, you could easily get all of your health back right there. So Strange Medicine is a go-to for CTAs for sure. I use Eye for an Eye. Now this is specific for me for Paint It Black because I go for the headshots and I like to paint for the headshots. Now if you don't go for headshots, Eye for an Eye is not a card for you. Basically just every time you get a headshot, you're going to get a little Deadeye back. I do that so that I can cut down on how many tonics that I have to use, but again, it's going to depend on your playstyle a little bit. Another really great card for CTAs is Fool Me Once. Each time you get shot by an enemy, each shot will progressively take less health than the one did previously. And since you're going to have enemies that are shooting you over and over again, especially those snipers, this one can help you just to take less damage and just give you time to get out of that, take a tonic, or get into an area where you can kind of just regroup. The cards you choose to use, of course, are going to depend on your playstyle, whether you want a damage build, whether you want a defensive build, or whether you want a build that's going to regain health and Deadeye so that you can use less tonics, or even a combination, whether you want maybe a defensive, a damage, a Deadeye card. So play around with it a little bit, see what works best for you, and try to narrow down, maybe try a card. If it doesn't work, try something different. And just see what works in the CTAs, what doesn't work. I'd love it if you guys leave a comment below. Let me know what cards are your favorite to use in CTAs. So of course the second part of this is what guns are you going to take in? And I would say if you're struggling a little bit, try to use guns that you use often in Red Dead, that you're super comfortable with, very familiar with, especially because you want to have all the stats fully maxed out if you can, if you have the money and if you've been playing long enough. But you also want to consider things like what size map are you on? A map that is very open, wide open, and has a lot of distance where enemies are going to be coming in and they are going to have a clear line of sight to you. It's going to benefit from a rifle or a sniper, something where you can get a lot of distance to get those enemies that are further out. Versus if you're on a very close map, very tight knit, especially like the Saint Denis Graveyard right now would be an example, you're going to want something like shotguns, pistols, revolvers, very close range weapons. And so consider that when you consider taking a rifle versus a repeater, or, shotguns or revolvers versus pistols. And then the next part of that is you do want to consider your ammo, because ammo can be a little bit of a problem in CTAs depending on whether or not you go in as a team or you're going in solo. Obviously, if you're going in solo, those, 400 or 500 enemies, that's all you, other than the allies getting some of them at the beginning. That's all you're going to need a ton of ammo. So make sure you start with regular rounds and make sure you have regular high velocity. If you've got split point ammo pamphlets, I recommend, making those as well. Express, you want to make sure you're full. And then also consider things like revolvers. You can carry more ammo than pistols. Repeaters, you can carry more ammo than rifles, especially if you have those extra pouches. And by the way, if you don't have the shotgun pouch that allows you to carry 120 shells versus 60, immediately go to a fence and get that, because that is going to be super helpful. I recommend a shotgun as one of your weapons pretty much for every single map, because you're going to need it for bucket heads, machete guys that are coming running up really quick, the animals that maybe are going to attack you. A shotgun is going to be super helpful. It's very powerful. And if you start to get overwhelmed, it's going to get you out of a jam. Now, whether or not I take it on a rifle or a repeater really does depend on the map size, whether or not what special enemies there are, if I'm going to need to be able to snipe from a distance. And I also go back and forth between pistols and revolvers, because pistols are going to give you a lot of speed. You're going to be able to get a lot of bullets out very quickly, but they don't have as much power. And also you can't carry as much ammo. So these are all things that you want to consider before you go into a CTA as to which weapons you're going to take in. Okay, tip number 2 is get to know the map that you're doing. Get to know where the enemies spawn, what special enemies spawn, if they're special animals. So get up familiar with the map, because that's going to be helpful in knowing, hey, during wave 5, we're going to start to get these type of wagons. During wave 8, we're going to get a cannon guy. Wave 9, we're going to get a panther. And that can help you to be prepared. If you find yourself getting caught off guard and struggling, it's just really going to help you to find a good spot on the map, as well as know what guns that you should take in. And going back to the previous point, I do choose different guns and sometimes ability cards based on the map and based on what predators or special enemies I know that I'm going to face. So it's also going to help you to know where there are areas of cover that you can use, or what areas are busier or get more easily overwhelmed. Okay, tip number 3 is go into CTAs with friends first. If your ultimate goal is to solo a CTA, that's great. I love to challenge myself too. Soloing CTAs really doesn't give you any benefit in terms of you're going to get the same money and gold either way if you complete all 10 waves, whether you're in a group of 4 or you're solo. So there's no actual benefit to soloing a CTA other than the satisfaction of trying something really hard and succeeding at it. So first, just go in and play with friends. One, have a good time. That's what this game is about. It's about community. It's about getting in there, having a good time, having some laughs, having each other's backs, but also it's going to help to prepare you to solo a CTA. So start with a 4-man team, go down to 3, and then duo it. And once you're feeling really confident with duos and you guys are killing it and nobody's going down and you're defeating a lot of enemies and it's feeling super easy, then give that solo CTA a try. Tip number 4. If you're going to attempt to solo a CTA or you've been trying and have been struggling, then I recommend picking one map and sticking with it and pick one of the easier maps. Now, there is some debate as to which maps are easier than the others, and it's going to depend really on you. Everybody's going to have differences. For example, I think Fort Mercer is one of the easier maps to solo, but most people say they think it's the hardest, and it honestly really just depends on your play style. I would say though, if you don't know where to start, I think the easiest map is McFarland's Ranch, and so I'd recommend starting there. It is one of the bigger maps, but you have the advantage of it being very open, so you can kind of run around and get to different areas. As one area gets overwhelmed with enemies, there's enough space to be able to get around to a different area. So while it might take longer just because it is such a large map, it is very open, I do think that it is one of the easiest maps that you could solo. Now, you might disagree, so pick whatever map you like, but again, if you're just looking for a starting point, you're looking for somewhere to start, that was the first one I ever successfully soloed, and I do think that it is a good one to try. So let's switch gears now. You are a CTA god. You've either soloed them or have no interest, but they're super easy for you and you're just kind of getting bored with them. So now's a good time if you don't want to stop playing them or you have friends that are still really interested in playing them if you want to play with them. Now is the time to kind of create little challenges for yourself. So you can do things like use different ability card builds. So if you're always used to using the same ability cards, try using something different. Try going for damage if you normally go for defense. Try going for the opposite. Try to use one of the other ability cards that aren't as helpful for you, but maybe more helpful for the group. So try something like Focus Fire so that everybody in the group can deal a little more damage. Or do quite an inspiration build. Pair it with Kick in the Butt and go in there, and that's going to help you to gain health back when it's active, and the Kick in the Butt when you take damage will help you get Deadeye. So try some different ability card loadout, something that's going to be a little bit more challenging for you. Try to take in different guns. So guns that maybe you're not as comfortable with, that you don't use as often. I actually did a Valentine solo CTA. Now I didn't finish this one. I got into actually wave 10, but I went in with, and I never did retry it. I went in with double action revolvers, which are terrible, by the way. The Litchfield, which I actually do like, but is very inaccurate, and a semi-auto shotgun, which I absolutely hate that shotgun. It's probably my least favorite of the 4. And so just challenge yourself to go in with weapons that you aren't as familiar with, aren't as comfortable with, and just see where it gets you. The next thing you can do to kind of spice it up a little bit is to create specific challenges for yourself or for the team. Now, Jack is famous for this, and we've done some pretty crazy CTAs. Everything from, hey, you can only use one revolver, that's all you can use the entire match, or you can only use knives. We did a whole CTA where we could only use a knife or a machete, or the shears, I think is what I use. So you could tackle them, but you couldn't use, I think we could allow dynamite for the war wagons and bucket heads, because you can't actually use knives against the bucket heads. We did a CTA, it was fists only, so we're beating them up. So create little challenges. I know for one of the Halloween ones, and I don't think I participated in this one super long. We tried it, but again, it's really hard for me to stay in one spot. So that would have been a good challenge for me. In one of the pentagrams, everybody had to take a corner and kind of stay in there and watch each other's backs. So create different challenges. Again, that's something that you can do that kind of mixes it up a little bit, makes it a little bit more challenging, and they can be super fun. We had a lot of laughs during that. They can be hard as well. You might not succeed the first time or ever, depending on how tricky it is. But yeah, give something like that to try. And if you ever need any ideas, just see Jack, man. He comes up with some crazy ones for sure. Finally, just have fun with it. Remember, this is a video game. It should be fun. It's great to challenge yourself and to keep practicing, but if you're just getting too frustrated, just do something else, try something else, or maybe just put it aside for a little bit, because it shouldn't be making you angry or making you upset. Remember, those of us that have soloed them, I can tell you for sure, some of it is luck, some of it's RNG, some of it's just that we have played way too many hours in this game. So again, have a good time with them, and if you're not, try something else in the game. Thank you so much to everybody who took the time to watch this. I'd appreciate it if you give the video a like, and please, in the comment section, leave your recommendations below. What do you find in CTAs that's super helpful? What cards do you use? What guns do you use? What strategies and tips do you have? What map do you think is the easiest? Let us know down in the comments section. Thank you so much, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.